He was the man behind some of the most horrific and disturbing crimes the world has ever seen. A predator whose actions left a trail of terror, grief, and unanswered questions. For over a decade, he hunted, tortured, and killed in ways that still haunt the collective memory of millions. His name alone sends chills down the spine. This is the chilling, true-life account of Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was an American serial killer who killed 17 boys and men from 1978 to 1991. His murders, which involved necrophilia and cannibalism, are immortalized because of their gruesome nature. Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but later moved to Bath Township, Ohio, where he would commit his first murder. Growing up in Ohio, Dahmer attended Bath Elementary, Eastview Junior High, and Revere High School, according to the Cincinnati Enquirer. Dahmer was fascinated with animal bones as a child and used to use acid to scrape the meat off dead animals. Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder in 1978, 3 weeks after high school graduation, killing 8-year-old Stephen Hicks at his family home in Ohio. Dahmer lured Hicks to the house, and when Hicks attempted to leave, Dahmer killed him by striking him with a 10-pound dumbbell. He later dismembered and disposed of the body in garbage bags, storing parts briefly before discarding them in the woods behind the house. No one suspected his actions for a decade. After his parents' divorce, Dahmer joined the Army in 1979, but was discharged in 1981 for alcohol abuse, which became a major issue. He returned to Ohio, living briefly with his father and stepmother, where his heavy drinking persisted. Later, his father sent him to live with his grandmother in Wisconsin. In 1982, Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested for indecent exposure. Between 1985 and 1988, Jeffrey Dahmer lived with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin, where he murdered 2 men and dismembered their bodies in the basement. He also admitted killing a 3rd man who vanished after attending a gay pride parade in Chicago. Growing suspicious of his behavior and the strange odors, his grandmother asked him to move out in 1988. In 1987, nearly 9 years after his first murder, Dahmer killed 24-year-old Stephen Tuomi in a Milwaukee hotel. He claimed he only intended to drug Tuomi but awoke to find him dead, likely beaten to death. Dahmer placed the body in a suitcase, took it to his grandmother's basement, and a week later dismembered it. He kept the head briefly before boiling it in detergent and bleach, then pulverizing the skull. This murder marked the start of his more frequent killings. Jeffrey Dahmer met 22-year-old Richard Guerrero outside a Milwaukee gay bar in March 1988. Dahmer offered Guerrero $50 to spend the night at his grandmother's house. After drugging him with sleeping pills, Dahmer strangled Guerrero and performed sexual acts on his corpse. Dahmer dismembered the body within 24 hours, but concealing his crimes was growing harder. Jeffrey Dahmer murdered Anthony Sears in 1989. Aspiring model Anthony Sears, 24, became Dahmer's 5th victim after they met at a bar. Dahmer, fearing his apartment was being watched by the police, brought Sears to his grandmother's basement to be drugged and strangled. Sears was the first victim from whom Dahmer took trophies, storing and preserving Sears's head and genitals, which he kept in a wooden box. For a time, he stored the box in his work locker. Dahmer was arrested and convicted of second-degree sexual assault in 1989 for assaulting the brother of one of his future victims. Jeffrey Dahmer was sentenced to 12 months in jail and 5 years of probation for second-degree sexual assault. He was granted work release to continue his job as a mixer at Ambrosia Chocolate Factory and required to register as a sex offender. Released 2 months early on parole, Dahmer moved into an apartment at 924 North 25th Street in Milwaukee. In May 1990, months after his release from jail, Dahmer murdered 32-year-old Raymond Smith, a sex worker he lured with $50. After drugging and strangling him at his North 25th Street apartment, Dahmer posed the body for Polaroids, dismembered it, and dissolved most remains in acid, keeping the skull in a cabinet. When neighbors complained of the odor, he claimed his refrigerator was broken. In 1990, Dahmer killed Ernest Miller, 27, by slashing his throat after luring him with a promise of money. Without sleeping pills, Dahmer changed his killing method. He kept parts of Miller's body to eat and painted and displayed his head in his apartment. 3 weeks later, Dahmer killed 22-year-old David Thomas. Later, he said he came to realize during their encounter that he was not attracted to Thomas, but he still drugged and killed him, then disposed of his body, intentionally not keeping any parts. Dahmer picked up 17-year-old Curtis Strader at a bus stop, offering him money in exchange for nude photos, dismembering and keeping body parts for cannibalism and trophies. Following his arrest, Dahmer said eating his victims was a compulsion, a way of making me feel they were a part of me. Jeffrey Dahmer murdered Errol Lindsay on the 7th of April, 1991. Lindsay, who was 19 years old at the time, encountered Dahmer while running an errand in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dahmer lured Lindsay back to his apartment by striking up a conversation and offering him a drink. Once inside, Dahmer drugged Lindsay and drilled a hole in his skull, into which he poured hydrochloric acid. Dahmer hoped this would induce a zombie-like state, allowing him to control Lindsay without killing him. However, Lindsay regained consciousness and complained of a headache. Dahmer then strangled him to death. Dahmer met 20-year-old Matthew Turner in Chicago and persuaded him to travel to Milwaukee for a photo shoot. Once again, Dahmer drugged, strangled, and dismembered his victim, keeping the head and internal organs in plastic bags in his freezer. Choosing another victim from Chicago, Dahmer promised Jeremiah Weinberger, 20, a weekend away at his apartment in Milwaukee. Dahmer did not commit the murder until the day following their arrival, when Weinberger voiced his intention to leave. A few days later, 24-year-old Oliver Lacey went to Dahmer's apartment, where he was drugged, given chloroform to keep him unconscious but alive, and then strangled. Dahmer had sex with the corpse, storing the head and heart in the refrigerator and the skeleton in a freezer. In July 1991, Dahmer approached 3 men, offering them money to pose for nude photographs. A man named Tracy Edwards agreed and followed Dahmer back to his apartment, where Dahmer handcuffed him and held a knife to his chest, telling Edwards he intended to eat his heart. Edwards escaped by punching Dahmer, knocking him down, and running out the unlocked front door. He flagged down 2 Milwaukee police officers and led them to Dahmer's apartment. There, they found an open drawer with Polaroid pictures of dismembered bodies. When Dahmer saw the photos, he tried to flee, but the officers overpowered and cuffed him. Following his arrest on the 22nd of July, 1991, Dahmer gave a detailed confession to police, confessing to a total of 17 slayings. Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in prison on the 28th of November, 1994. He died from severe head injuries after being attacked by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver, at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. That was the chilling account of Jeffrey Dahmer. For more stories like this, you know where to find us, so do subscribe.